I bought this house in the fall of 2020 and I have almost finished remodeling the entire thing. And this is what the front porch looked like before. It was on the verge of collapse when I replaced it. Now I have remodeled almost every room in this house and I'm surprised I accomplished as much as I did. And when I say I remodeled, I mean I hired people to do the work. I did not do this work myself because I wanted it done right. But let me take you on a journey of everything that I've done to this house. The very first project I did was to have this horrible chain link fence replaced with a beautiful privacy fence. And a lot of people were like, why is that the first project that you're doing? Well, the area was a little bit sketchy at the time, and I knew I would never stay here or be comfortable if I didn't make it feel safe. So the privacy fence was the first project. But after about 4 years, the fence became very worn and was damaged in some places, so I had a good friend make a bunch of repairs and stain it, so it's all been updated. The next project I did was to have a gravel driveway installed because at the time I had this enormous bus, it was actually a short bus, that I needed to park in a safe place. The bus project was a disaster and it's long gone now, but I decided to keep the gravel driveway and actually expand on it. So I ended up ordering a bunch more gravel and filling in the entire back end of my backyard because absolutely nothing grew back there. It would just turn into a mud pit anytime that it rained. And I ended up ordering so much gravel that I had enough to put around my fire pit, which made it look a lot nicer. And I basically filled in the whole back area there around my back deck. And because I still had some left over, I spread it out in the front driveway, but I didn't put anything underneath it. So of course, all these pesky weeds are popping up and it doesn't look as nice as it could. I had a friend help me spread it all out and he bought me some weed killer to help get rid of the weeds. Now, normally I wouldn't use a pesticide because I don't think it's very eco-friendly, but since it's just the driveway and I'm not growing anything there, I figured, what the hey. So my basement has been an ongoing project. When I first moved in, the whole thing was full of mold. It was absolutely disgusting. I had all of the walls painted. I ended up buying these cool little, I think it's for an exercise room, these mats, these puzzle piece mats, which I put down on the flooring throughout, so it's actually got a decent little floor now. I added some more lighting to make it just a little bit less spooky, and I had so much junk to clean out and put away, so this is what's left, the stuff I'm keeping, and some decent cardboard boxes that I didn't want to throw away. Got some old curtains blocking off the crawl space. I have just put so much work into this basement to make it clean and usable and mold-free. Now, at some point, I would like to put down maybe some linoleum over this flooring, but in the meantime, I think it's just fine the way it is. I know I didn't do the best job in some places, but it's nice. It's working out okay. And other than that, there's not much more that I think I want to do with the basement, but I had to clean out the crawl space. When I first moved in, I didn't get everything out and I just laid down a layer of plastic, and when I pulled the plastic up, it was full of mold under there. It was so gross. So I devoted an afternoon to pulling everything out and cleaning all of it out. I've been neglecting my major appliances, and this is what I pulled out of my dryer vent, and that's absolutely shameful and probably dangerous. And I didn't have the hose properly vented out of the house, which is also dangerous, so I decided it's probably time to fix that. And since it's all concrete down here, I figured going through this window would be the best way. So my wonderful partner came over with his Dremel tool and we decided to cut a little hole and buy an extension for the hose so that I could vent the dryer. And we got it cut pretty easy and got that put in and tested it out.
Yay! Looks good.
And now it doesn't look the best, but at least it's being vented outdoors. It's really not safe to just have it blowing directly into the house, and it's not going to help the mold problem. So I thought I was done with the basement, but then unfortunately, after about a week of extremely heavy rain and my drain getting blocked, which was totally my fault, the whole thing flooded. So this was an absolute nightmare because a lot of stuff got wet. I had some sheets that ended up getting moldy. I had to throw them away. Once I figured out how the drain was blocked, I was able to get the water out, but then I had to rip out all of these tiles, these foam tiles, and basically redo the entire thing. But I decided to properly seal up the basement so that this wouldn't happen again. So first, I had to remove everything and then thoroughly clean it and thoroughly dry it. I noticed there were several cracks in different places, but I'm fairly certain the water is getting in through the back wall. But I thought if we're gonna do this, let's do it right and patch all of it. So I had patched up the back wall previously, as you can see, but I didn't do a good enough job. So then I patched it again, and I thought I did a really thorough job. And I painted over everything with some dry lock paint to seal it all in. And then it rained again and the water was still coming in. So then I patched it again, and then it rained again and the water was still coming in. So then I patched it again and again and again, and kept painting over it with the dry lock paint until I was fairly confident. I kept having to wait for more rain to see if the water was coming in, and I was always shocked when it was. I'm like, really? And then I realized that the water's coming in an area where the downspout is, so I got a longer tube to direct the water away from the house. Now, I'm perfectly aware that there's a right way to do this job where people dig from the outside and they fill it in from the outside, but the thing is, there's not enough water coming in for me to hassle with it. The only reason the basement flooded the first time was because I had the drain blocked. So even if a little bit still gets in, it's not a big deal to me, and I didn't want to hassle with a big, expensive, proper job. But I managed to seal it multiple times with Quickcrete, and I haven't had any issues since. And of course my dryer went out. I'm not sure if it was because of the flooding or if just the belt broke, but fortunately I have a very good friend who was able to fix that for me. This basement, despite being the room I spend the least amount of time in, I've definitely done the most work on, but I've got it all put back together. I even added some more lighting at the top. I've put everything up on tables just in case it floods again. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen. When I first moved into this house, the front yard was kind of gross because cats were coming over. They were pooping underneath the front porch, so it stunk real bad. I had to rip off all of these panels and have them replaced so that the cats would stop getting under there, and I had to shovel out so much cat poop. And then after we got it all cleaned up, my mom came over and helped me redo the front yard. We got some plants and we laid down some mulch, and oh, it looked so much better. Now, there have been a lot of updates since this time. The entire front porch has been replaced, and I've been scanning the whole area for how I want to do my gardening, but that's going to be a different project for a different day. And now I'm thinking about how I want to redo this whole garden area. Fall has just begun, so I've closed up my garden beds, but I need to replan how I want to do that. I've added some stepping stones. Right now I've got a bunch of different pots and plants sitting around the mulch because the more space taken up, the less likely cats are to use it. And I'm going to plant some ground cover for the yard, and I want to get some plants to actually put around here. I know boxwoods do really well, and instead of mulch, I think I want to fill in the whole area with rocks because I think cats are less likely to poop in it. So I've got a lot of updates to do on this whole area, but we're going to wait till spring. One of the most important projects I had done on my house was replacing all of the windows. The old windows were cracked and worn, some of them were broken in places. They were in terrible shape. The house was super drafty. Some of them had a really huge gap, so I decided to do that project very early on. I can't remember how much it cost or how many windows I had, but I can tell you that it was worth every penny because just look at this difference. So much nicer, my whole house is better, and my utility bill was split in half. In addition to having all the windows replaced, I had the sliding glass door in my sunroom replaced. You could barely open it. It was also very damaged, and I wanted some French doors put in, and they are so much better and definitely more secure. And there aren't a lot of updates that I need to do in the windows because they are still in wonderful shape. I need to get them thoroughly cleaned. They're pretty dirty, but I'm gonna do that later whenever I do a thorough cleaning of my entire house, probably in the spring. And there's one set of blinds that needs to be replaced. But other than doing a deep clean, especially down here, and maybe making sure all the screens are still where they're supposed to be, there's not much to do. This is one of the most satisfying projects by far. One of the biggest transformations in my house is my kitchen, and this is what it looked like when I first moved in. There was this tiny doorway separating it, and there was this random thing coming out of the ceiling that I guess used to connect to a stove. This door was so stupid, like I absolutely hated this, so I had a friend come in and rip that entire wall out and move everything over a little bit so that the whole thing would be a lot more open. There was also this terrible tile. I ended up ripping out all of that myself, and I thought I had hardwood floors underneath, but turns out it was a soft pine wood, so I had to change my plans about the type of flooring. And then there were just these awful cabinets. I put all the fixtures and cabinets for free on Facebook Marketplace, and somebody came and took them. And I've replaced every single thing in the kitchen. I got a different oven, a mini oven, and brand new cabinets and countertops, and I chose these retro stripes, which I love. I love everything 70s. And then on the other side, the old fridge was so worn out, and it was being powered by a cord that it should not have been powered by, so my electrician friend fixed all of that, and I replaced everything on that side too. So my kitchen became a lot more spacious, much more open. This is what it looked like before. As you can see, very cramped and small. And then after ripping that wall out, oh, what a difference that made. So having my kitchen done was just one of the most rewarding projects. So now that I'm doing updates on all the rooms in my house, I wanted to revisit my kitchen, and the first thing I did was go through my pantry and clean it out. I really don't like throwing away food, but I had tons of stuff that I just don't eat and I don't use. Fortunately, a friend was able to take most of it, but I think it's good every once in a while to do a thorough cleaning of the pantry. So I removed everything, I cleaned off all the surfaces, I bleached everything because I just wanted it to be clean. My kitchen became kind of dingy. And I did the same thing with my fridge. I decided to go through and see what needs to get eaten. I'd like to start over with a fresh list of ingredients starting with the new year and try to be better about cooking at home. So getting organized and organizing my fridge and my pantry helped tremendously. It also can help cut down on ants or other pests that you might not want. And this is what it looks like now that it's all been cleaned up. So much more organized, so much easier to find everything. Having it clean and organized like this is also going to make me more likely to cook in the future. At least I hope so. Now, my countertops have gotten worn and chipped in a couple of places, and these little white spots drive me nuts. And instead of being fancy, I just got a little Sharpie and filled it in. I probably should have used a brown one or one that was a little bit closer to the color, but honestly, it's much less noticeable than it was before. And the next thing that I would like to work on is this gap at the top of my chimney. Also, it flakes off in some places, so I wanted to make sure it didn't keep falling off, but there was a gap and dirt and other things were falling down, which was driving me crazy. Now, the right way to do it would be to put a couple of trim pieces up there, but I'm dumb and decided to use duct tape as a temporary measure, of course, just because I'm tired of dust and dirt falling out of my attic and onto my food. So it's a temporary measure for now, and I'll probably put some proper trim pieces up there later on. On a scale of 1 to 10, how ridiculous is this? Nah, I think it's fine for now as a temporary measure. So I had a little tidying up to do in some places because when the drywall was done, it was kind of a sloppy job and I didn't like the way it looked, so I went through and chipped off some of the bigger pieces in between the cracks just to make it look a little cleaner. I thought about maybe using trim in these 2 gaps, but I don't know. I think it's fine for now. And then I decided to clean and organize everything. I cleaned out every drawer. I cleaned everything off the top of the fridge. And the last thing I needed to do was touch up this awful white line where the ceiling meets the wall. Somehow I didn't get the right paint there. So I went through and did some paint touch-ups all along the border anytime this white really stood out against the rest. Hopefully it's the right color. I guess I'll know for sure whenever it dries. And I figured since we got the paint out, we might as well cover up these rust spots on the fridge. Doesn't that look so much better? Once it dried, you couldn't tell quite as much, but I'm happy with it. And it's still wet, but it looks better than it did whenever that really stark white color was contrasting with it. So I did a few other paint touch-ups around. I did the fridge. I did all along the border. If it stands out too much still, it's going to drive me nuts, and I'll probably end up having to do the whole wall, which is good. So the last thing will just be a deep cleaning, which I'm probably going to do later on. My sunroom, or my little workroom as I like to use it, was one of the messiest projects that I did, and it didn't look that bad at first. I thought I could just texture over the walls, and these floors were intact because they were tile, and I didn't think it would be that big of a deal, but then when we ended up gutting the walls and pulling everything out, the rafters were full of squirrel poop because animals had been getting up inside, and that used to be the view from the backyard. So changing up the sunroom was quite the adventure. One of the first things I did was replace this sliding door. You could barely get it open. It was broken. It was hard to lock. And I replaced it with some French doors. So it stayed like that for a long time. And then when it came time to actually remodel the room, I had all of these cabinets taken out. People will take things for free. They just came in and uninstalled them for me, which was really nice. So at first I thought, oh, this looks great. I can just totally texture over these walls, but I was wrong. Once we started pulling everything out, we realized it was full of poop. It was so gross. But we managed to get it all out, and we got it all cleaned up, and I put in all new insulation. And I thought about leaving the ceiling open, but then realized that that wasn't very practical. And my good friend had all this recovered fence board, so he covered the walls in them, and that made it look really cool. And now this is what it looks like. So much better than it was, and I'm glad I decided to rip out all the wall panels and do the whole thing all the way down to the studs, because the house smells a lot better now that all the squirrel poop is no longer piled up in the insulation. So here's the current state of the sunroom. I've got my little recycling center here. I use this room to do art, so I've hung up some of the pieces that I've made. I've got a little work table and a nice little work area. Good friend of mine came in and added some trim because it looked kind of unfinished before, and these new trim pieces really make a huge difference, especially around the door. So this is where I organize all my art supplies, all of my tools. I tried to fix the flooring I didn't do the best job with it, but this little area rug covers up the worst pieces, so who knows if I'll go in and redo it. It's not that big of a deal. I just notice it and it bugs me. But it's much more pleasant than it used to be, I can tell you that much, and it's turned out to be a pretty nice little workroom. So, I'm happy with the progress. I'm not sure how much I'll change later on. One of the biggest transformations in my house has been the bathroom, and I've been going through and assessing some small repairs, such as filling these holes with some paint putty. I'm gonna have to touch that up. This room doesn't need a whole lot of repairs, except there's some grout coming out of the flooring and just a few little things. Now, this is what it looked like when I first moved in. It was almost unusable, like the tub was full of dried grout and the toilet was sinking into the floor, and look at what a difference. I had a good friend do all of the tile, and the floor was actually on the verge of collapse because the water had been leaking out of the toilet into the floor. It was so gross. Like, remodeling my bathroom brought me so much joy, and every time I use it, I am just filled with delight because I want it to be a spa, and I think I did a pretty good job of turning it into a spa. So, as you can see, the old toilet was broken and cracked, and this is what it looks like now. But there are still a few things that need to be repaired. For example, the bathtub for some reason won't stay put, and there was a huge hair clog, so my good friend came over and he tried to get it a little bit more secure. It was also leaking. Hopefully it doesn't leak anymore. I also replaced the soap dispenser and the toothbrush holder because it was broken and I kept trying to glue it back together, and that wasn't working out. And then just a few little touch-ups like around the sink. I did kind of a sloppy job. That was my doing. I had to clean out a bunch of dried silicone. And I'm thinking about putting moss down here in these two corners. There is some light. I want it to absorb water, but I don't know if that's an absolute ridiculous idea. I'd love to know anybody's thoughts on that. I did buy a little tropical plant. I'm gonna have to put it up on a stand because I don't like it being that low to the ground, because I think just a few plants in here will make it look nicer. And I thought, well, maybe I can put some other plants down there at the base since it's hard to find live moss. So I bought these and then quickly realized that they're not going to get enough light tucked under the tub like that. So instead, I decided to put them both on the little shelves at the side. And I think that looks very nice, but I haven't solved the problem of water getting back behind the tub, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Finally, after filling those holes with some paint putty, I did a couple of paint touch-ups around. I did a deep cleaning of the bathroom, and I also worked on the floor. I got some grout and I filled in all of the cracks. I need to tidy it up a little bit. I haven't swept or cleaned it, but I think it looks a lot nicer. After doing a deep clean and making all those minor repairs, I'm feeling pretty good about my bathroom. The only thing that I still need to think about is whether or not I should put moss down around the sides of the tub. I might replace the door at some point because the room is small. So I still have a few things to think about, but for the most part, it's come along very nicely. When I first moved in, the living room wasn't a priority because it was livable. It was just ugly. Like, the wall panels were clearly very ugly and I wasn't sure if I could paint over them or rip them out entirely. But everything was intact, so there was no rush to get it done. There was a horrible light fixture that was like falling out of the ceiling. But other than that, there wasn't much to do here. Now, originally, there was this tiny doorway that separated the living room from the kitchen, and I hated just how it separated out the rooms. So one of the first things I did when I remodeled this room was have that entire wall ripped out so that it was beautiful and open and I think it just looks so much better. And of course, we ripped out all the walls, all of the flooring, and replaced everything, and also the light fixtures, and I painted it this nice color. I like having wacky art on the walls, so I tried to keep the colors as neutral as possible. Now this is what the living room currently looks like, and there are only just a handful of updates that I needed to do. Most of it is good and intact, but there was some plaster that was coming out, and I wasn't sure if I should plaster over it or the best way to repair it. But everything else is pretty much intact. My wonderful partner came over and put up some security cameras, which makes me feel a lot better and much safer. The area is not too bad, but it never hurts to have a few cameras put up, and we ended up having to secure the cord also. So I'm glad to finally have internet and have that project done. I love the way my living room turned out. I think it's so cozy. I love that it is open and spacious and comfortable, and I've got all of my local art and favorite art pieces on the wall. Eventually, I'll update the couch. I'll get a new one. And the only other thing that I needed to repair was this damage to the wall. I had stuck something up there, and when I pulled it off, it took the paint right off. But other than that, there isn't that much to do. So I tried to figure out, do I want to go to great lengths to try to fix that? Oh, and there were some paint splatters on the floor that I needed to clean up. I've been doing these little tiny repairs in each room, and this one, it was mostly just little cosmetic things. But I wasn't in the mood to actually repair the walls, so instead I did something very silly. I put posters over the damage. So these posters came with my Pink Floyd album, and I'm like, you know what, who cares? As long as I'm living here, I don't think anybody's really gonna notice. And I like the way it looks, even if it is slightly uneven. Try not to look too closely. So I won't be doing any major updates to the living room for a while. I think it's fine. My old back deck was really small and on the verge of collapse, and when I decided to replace it, I thought, well, if I'm gonna have a back deck, I'm gonna have a proper back deck complete with a ramp. And it was a fun project, and it's so nice hanging out on my backyard. And later on, I had to get it stained because it wasn't in the best shape. And I also had my friend come out and build a little canopy to hang over the top. Now, the canopy is great, except for the fact that it is not waterproof. I meant to get a waterproof canopy so that I could sit back here whenever it's raining. Now, eventually, I might have a full pergola built back here, but for now, this little canopy works just fine. And another update is this back camera that I got. I wanted one in the front and one in the back that my lovely partner hung up. I love having the camera because there is all sorts of wildlife that ventures out here on my back deck, and it's a lot of fun to watch. Eventually I'm gonna have a nice umbrella out here to keep it covered, but that's for another day. Due to some hail damage, I was able to replace my roof using mostly insurance. However, we ran into a number of problems. There were multiple layers of shingles on top of this roof, more than there are supposed to be. And when it all got replaced, it looked so much better. Unfortunately, there is still a spot where the roof meets. It's actually a foundational issue and not a roofing issue where water is still getting in, so I had to call the roofing company and they're gonna come back out and seal it. And there's this big hole. I'm not sure what happened here. I think a board was taken off and never replaced, and it allows full access to my attic. So I have heard squirrels scurrying around above my head, and it's driving me bananas. So we thought about some of our options. We stuffed a huge wad of insulation back there as far back as we could shove it, and then I put these boards up, and this is just a preventative measure, and we're probably going to staple chicken wire all around the inside there to keep the squirrels out. And of course I got busy cleaning the top and cleaning out the gutters. And other than that, the roof has been holding up nicely. The old front porch was on the verge of collapse after about a year or two of me living here. It had this really heavy tile floor, and I'm not sure how it stayed up for as long as it did. The railing was in bad shape, so my good friends came and they built me a whole new front porch. And it's much safer and it looks a lot better. And while he was out here, the only update that needed to be done was fixing the screen in my screen door. But as far as updates go with my beautiful front porch, it needs to be stained. It's been long enough now that I need to stain it, but I waited too long and the weather is cold, so I'm gonna have to wait to stain it until spring. Which is good because I plan on having garden beds in the front yard, so I can just stain them all at the same time. So once the weather gets warm enough, I'm gonna take off all the furniture. I'm going to have it all stained a very nice color. And for now, I'm just gonna enjoy it because look at how much better it is than my old front porch. When I first moved in, the backyard was full of logs and sticks and pallets and all sorts of stuff to burn. And then over the course of remodeling my house, my poor backyard got absolutely trashed and even cleaned up like it is in this photo. It just isn't a very pleasant place to hang out. So I ended up graveling over a lot of areas where nothing could grow, graveled around the fire pit and around the sides of the house, and then neatly stacked all of my wood in the back, and it looks so much better. But there are still things that I would like to do differently. Now, come winter, there was an incident where I found a mama cat and her 2 kittens, and I had to get them inside, and in order to get them inside, I had to dig apart my pile of wood. Also, I did some gardening. I have no idea what I planted there. So there's going to be definitely some cleanup and some updates that's going to need to happen. That's my neatly stacked wood pile, or what used to be neatly stacked. I had to tear it all apart to find those kittens, and I found them, so that's going to be another story for another day. But ideally, I'd like to do something different out here. It's hard to really invest in this outdoor space when I know I'm probably going to leave the country again, and I don't know for how long. If I was more settled, I would probably look into getting chickens or doing something sustainable out here. It's not the best space for gardening. I'm going to use the front yard for that. But there are a lot of different things I could do with this outdoor space. So then earlier this spring, we had tornadic activity. I don't think a tornado actually touched down, but we had an enormous storm. And I was really lucky that the damage in my backyard was minor. There were just some very big limbs that were down because in the rest of the neighborhood, the damage was not minor. All I had was this large tree limb which bent my fence, and then another one which landed on top of my little umbrella. It ended up breaking it, but that wasn't a big deal. And my backyard is kind of trashed at the moment, but in the rest of the neighborhood, there were full trees that were taken out. I saw one fall on somebody's house. Another one took out a power line. So I'm actually pretty lucky that the damage to my yard was minimal. Fortunately, I've got some very good friends. They came over and helped get that tree limb off of the fence and chopped it up for me so that I could have a little bit more firewood. I'm still not sure what I want to do with this backyard. For now, I'm just cleaning it up. I got all my wood stacked back up. Let's hope there are no more kittens in the future. So we'll just keep it like this for now. This is my finished bedroom, and there are very little updates that need to be done. There's a couple of little things like some dried paint on the wall that's kind of bothering me a little bit, but not enough for me to do anything about it. Now, the best thing about my room are my lights. I wanted my room to feel like a fluffy pink cloud so that when I sleep in here, it's all peaceful and beautiful. Isn't that nice? So I didn't have any updates to do, so I did a very deep clean instead. I cleaned off all of the surfaces. I cleaned off this entire shelf where I keep my handful of belongings, and I hung up a few pieces. I had bought this at a really cool flea market not long ago and forgot to hang it up, and so I hung another one on the mirror. And I also cleaned and organized my entire closet. So I'm trying to have as few clothes as possible. I'm able to fit all of them in this one teeny tiny closet, so that's good, but I still feel like I have too much. But everything else is intact and everything else is clean, aside from just a few places where the paint could stand to be touched up, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Finally got to garden this year, and I'm so excited, but I got a late start. I've been landscaping the front yard, and I planted these beautiful perennials, and I hope they come back next year. And I have a row of herbs, and I'm going to do this row a little differently next year, and then I put several garden beds in. Now, unfortunately, my front yard is more shaded than I realized because some of these garden beds simply aren't getting enough sunlight for things to grow, but I was still able to get a lot of cucumbers and peppers. Eventually, I'd like to do a row of flowering perennials along this fence line, something that tolerates shade, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do there yet. And this garden bed furthest in the shade, I'm not sure what I can grow there. It's just not a sunny enough area. So I've got big plans. I want to fill this area with flowering type plants that will attract pollinators. I want to get a bird bath out here, maybe a little seating area, and the goal is to fill all the space so that I don't have to mow. So I ended up adding these stepping stones, which I know you're not supposed to just put them right on top of the grass, but this is me kind of experimenting with how I want this to look. I'd like to fill in some of these gaps with a nice ground cover, and I've looked into several options, and right now I'm leaning toward wild strawberry because it doesn't grow too high and it's beautiful and it produces little edible berries. I think that would be really cool. I don't know how it will do in this shadier part of my yard, but in the sunnier part, I was told it should thrive. So here's my adorable stepping stones. I plan on putting the ground cover around them. In the shady areas, I thought about just putting moss down, finding some moss, because I think moss is so pretty. And then the whole mulched in area, I'm gonna change that up probably in the fall. So the garden is going to sleep for now. I've got it covered up to prevent the cats from getting in it, and we're going to reassess and do more gardening next year. And finally, I have completed the last bedroom of the house, but that doesn't mean that my house remodeling is done. It's just the last room. This is what it looked like before. The walls were in terrible condition. This was the last room to do because it was intact. There were, all of the issues were mostly cosmetic. So I ended up gutting the walls, ripping all of that out, getting rid of the floor vent, taking out this old linoleum, and getting rid of the old light fixture. And a good friend of mine came in and redid the whole thing. I went with kind of a dark forest theme, and this is what it looks like now. I got this beautiful kind of green bedding. I wanted like a charcoal color on the walls, and I need to find some artwork for the walls, but that's gonna come later. There's no closet, so I've got a little closet piece, and I've got a really nice ceiling fan that changes colors and does different things. So we'll find some art, and that's all the updates for now.